What we're going to learn how to do today is find the volume of a pyramid and cone. So in order to begin, you have to first off know what the general formula is. It's V equals 1/3 BH. Notice how the B is capitalized. It's going to change depending on the base. B stands for the area of the base, and H stands for the height. So yesterday when we talked about pyramids, we talked about them having either square bases, rectangular bases, or triangular bases. That's going to change our formula just a little bit because how you find the area of those three shapes is a little bit different, which is why the formula is going to be a little bit different for volume. So our first shape, our first question, we have what's the shape of this base here? So if I look, this is 4 kilometers, this is also 4 kilometers. They're the same. That means it's going to be a square. Well, how do you find the area of a square? That is two ways. There is either length times width, or it's something called side squared. Either one you want to use doesn't matter. So when we're talking about the area of the base, it's length times, I use length times width for squares. So when I plug it into my formula, instead of putting B, I'm going to put L times W because that's how I find the area of this base. So it looks something like this when you plug it in. My length is 4, my width is also 4, and the height of the entire pyramid is 5. So I'm going to plug those three things in. First thing you want to start with is your parentheses. So I have 4 times 4, that gives me 16. Next thing I'm going to do is 16 times 5, that gives me 80. Now these fractions out front, everyone hates fractions. So what you want to do, use a calculator. 1/3 times 80, or the way that I see fractions is I'm really dividing by 3. Multiplying by 1/3 and dividing by 3 are actually the same thing. So in my calculator, what I would do is I would divide 80 divided by 3, or if you want to, you can multiply 1/3 times 80. Doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to get the exact same answer. You should get 26.6 repeating. So in my question, it says round it to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to go to the hundredths place. I'm going to look at the value next to it. It's a 6. That 6 is going to tell my 6 to go up. So it's going to be 26.67. Last thing you got to do, you got to look at your labels. Kilometers, kilometers, kilometers. It's going to be kilometers, and volume is always cubed. Next one. What's the shape of this base? Well, it's square. So in order to find the volume of this one, based on the things I'm given, this big B stands for the area of the base. I love when it gives you this big B because that is giving you the area of what the base is. So you don't have to figure it out. It's nothing extra to your formula. So you're going to use that original formula, 1/3 BH, because B, the area of the base, is 49. It's already done for me. It's like skipping a step. H is 8. So you're going to plug both of those things in. I have 49 times 8, 392. Again, multiply by 1/3, divide by 3, whatever your heart desires. You have V equals 130.66 repeating. Sorry, 0.6 repeating. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths place. So I'm going to look here, hundredths place. Look at the value next to it. It's another 6. So it's going to tell my 6 that I'm looking at to go up to 130.67. Again, look at your units. Centimeters, centimeters. So I know my units is going to be centimeters cubed. Remember, volume is always cubed. Next one. Look at the shape of this base. This is a 7. This is a 9. That makes that a rectangle. Or you can just literally look at the bottom. It's a rectangle. How do you find the area of a rectangle? That's length times width. So in my general formula, where it's B, I'm going to plug in length times width because that's how I find the area of my base. So when I plug it in, it looks something like this. Now I'm going to plug it in using numbers. Length is 7, width is 9, my height is 7 again. So really I have 7 times 9 times 7, and then a 1/3 out front, of course. So what I'm going to do first is 7 times 9. That's 63. 63 times 7. Use a calculator. 441. Again, multiply by 1/3, divide by 3, whatever. You get 147. Last thing, look at your units. Centimeters, centimeters, centimeters. Centimeters cubed. Volume is cubed. 4. What's the shape of this base? If you look at it, it's a rectangle. But look at what it's given. Look at what the problem gives us. It says B down here. That means the area of the base is 8. So again, I'm using that general formula, which is V equals 1/3 base times height. This is the area of the base. I don't have to do anything. It's already given to me. So I'm just going to plug in 8 for B and 5 for H. 8 times 5 is 40. And I have 1/3 times 40 divided by 3, whatever you want to do. You have V equals 13.3 repeating. This one, it wants me to round my answer to the nearest 10th. So I'm going to look at the 10th place, look over. That 3 is going to tell my 3 to stay the same. So my final answer is 13.3. Again, look at your units. Yards, yards, yards cubed is value. Last one. So we got to look at the shape of this base. If you look, it's triangle. Well, how do you find the area of that shape? So in order to find the area of a triangle, it is 1/2 length times width. So I'm going to plug in this for B in my general formula. So I have V equals 1/3 times 1/2 length times width times height. Looks really nasty, but it's not so bad once you start doing it one step at a time. So if I'm looking for my length and my width, my length is 8, my width is 6. My height of my entire triangle is 5. What about this 10 out here? Well, it's there to confuse you, because if you look at it, it's talking about this right here. If I'm looking at just my triangle, this is the hypotenuse. No, I don't care about what the hypotenuse is in order to figure out the area. So it's just there to confuse you. So if you want to, cross it off. Identify it and cross it off so you're not mixing it up, so you're not getting it wrong. So anyways, like I said before, length is 8, width is 6, height is 5. Plug those things in. Take it one step at a time. I'm going to do 8 times 6 first. Gives me 48. I'm going to do that inside first, inside these parentheses. 1/2 times 48. Use a calculator. What I would do is 48 divided by 2. Multiplying by 1/2, dividing by 2, same thing. Gives me 24. 24 times 5 is actually 120. 120 divided by 3 gives me 40. So if you notice how if I'm not using something, it's basically getting dragged down until I start using it. So until I need to multiply by 5, I'm just bringing it down to the next step. So when you're doing these, they should get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So it looks very, very overwhelming up here, but if you do one step at a time, it'll get smaller each time. Anyways, I got 40. Looking at my units, feet, 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 so it's going to be feet cubed. Last one for pyramids. So looking at my base, what's my base? Well, it's triangle. So what you have, it gives you the area of the base. I love these. Less to plug in, less to do because it's already given to you. So I'm going to use that general formula, 1/3 BH. So my area of my base is 6. My height is also 6. So when I plug those in, it looks like that. I'm going to do 6 times 6 first. That gives me 1/3 times 36, or divided by 3, whatever. You get V equals 12. Again, look at your units. Meters, meters, meters cubed. Go ahead and flip it to the back. Now we're talking about volume of a cone. Another thing with volume of a cone is it's the exact same formula as pyramid. But again, you're looking at the difference that is between these two things is what is the area of the base. So B still stands for what the area of the base is. H still stands for height. Nothing new. When we're talking about cones, you know it's a cone because it's got a circular base. So when you're talking about the area of a base, it is actually pi r squared. So pi throws a whole new thing into the mix. Pi is a never-ending number. It's super nasty. What we're doing now, just for today, and when you're given these problems that it actually gives you the cone, that it's not a word problem, we're going to leave them in terms of pi. Basically what you're doing is you're dragging that pi along till the very end. So for just today, we're going to leave it in terms of pi. But usually word problems, you're going to want more of an exact answer, so you can't leave it in terms of pi. Two things. We have a radius and a diameter. Radius is a line segment from the center to a point on the circle. The diameter is a line segment that passes through the center whose ends are on the circle. So I will show visually how to tell the difference between a radius and a diameter when we get into a problem. And it's very important to know how these two things are related to each other. So the diameter is actually 2 times the radius. That means the radius is the diameter if you divide it by 2. So if half the diameter is the radius, 2 times the radius is the diameter. So they're kind of related to each other. How do you find the shape? So look at this. What's the base? It's circle. How do you find the area of a circle? Pi r squared. R stands for radius. So I told you guys I'd show you what radius means. From the center to a point on the circle. This right here is a radius. So talking about this area, so plugging in B, I'm going to use pi r squared. So my formula looks something like this, because B, the area of the base, is pi r squared. So radius, 12, height, 24, plug them in. First thing I'm going to do is 12 squared, or 12 times 12, that's 144. Next thing I'm going to do is 144 times 24. Use a calculator, please. That gives you 3,456. And notice I'm just dragging down this pi, how it's just kind of bent and everything. I'm just dragging it down. That's all you're going to do with it today. 1/3 times 3,456. That gives me 1,152. Again, don't forget that pi. He's just getting dragged through the entire problem. Last thing you gotta do, look at your units. Centimeters, centimeters, it's gonna be centimeters cubed. Okay, this guy. What's the shape of its base? Guess what? It's a circle. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to try this one by yourself. So you're going to have to pause this video, work it out, turn it back on, and I will go through this problem. So before you leave, let's write down the formula. So volume of a cone, it is the area of the base we know is pi r squared. So it looks something like this. V equals 1/3 pi r squared times h. Go ahead, pause the video, plug your stuff in, work it out, and then play, and I will come back and show you what the correct answer is. All right, so you should have identified that this 2 down here is a radius. It goes from the center to the point on the circle. So that's 2, and the height is 10. So when you plug it in, looks something like this. I'm going to do 2 squared first, 2 times 2, that gives me 4. I'm going to do 4 times 10, that gives me 40. And I'm going to do 1/3 of 40, or 40 divided by 3, 1/3 times 40, whatever. You get 13.3 repeating. This one wants me, and don't forget your pi, it wants me to round it to the nearest 10th. So I look at this 10th place, I look to the 3, it's going to tell me to stay the same. So it's really 13.3 pi. Inches, it's going to be inches cubed. Number 9. What's the shape of this base? Guess what? Still a cone. Guess what? Still a circle. How do you find the area of a circle? Pi r squared. Nothing new. However, what you got to look at what it's given us. So if you look at this bottom, you see this line. It goes all the way through and it goes through the center. This is the diameter here. So it's not the radius, it's the diameter. But in our formula, we need the radius. So diameter is 4. In order to find the radius, cut it in half. Divide it by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. That means my radius, or half of this, is 2. Now that I have my radius, now I can plug it in. So my general formula, again, is 1/3 pi r squared h. Radius, we just figured out, was 2. My height is 5. So I'm going to plug those two things in. I'm going to start with 2 squared, or 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 times 5 gives me 20. Again, don't forget dragging that pi through that whole problem. And then I have 1/3 times 20. That gives me 6.6 repeating pi. Don't forget it. So round to the nearest 100th. Go to the 100th place. This 6 is going to tell my 6 to go up. So it should round to 6.67 pi. And then go back and look at your units. Inches, inches cubed. Shape of this base, guess what? It's still a circle. What I want you to do now is I want you to find the volume of this cone. Let's get you set up first. So this is my diameter here. I know it's a diameter because it goes through the entire thing. So if I divide my diameter in half, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I know my radius is 1. So your general formula, again, is 1/3 pi r squared h. Pause this video, finish the rest of it, and come back when you have an answer, and I'll be going through it. So like I said before you guys left, the radius is 1. We figured that out because this whole thing is the diameter. You have to cut this in half. Divide it by 2. That gives you 1. Plug in 1. My height is 2. So when I plug it in, it looks something like this. 1 squared, or 1 times 1, is still 1. I'm going to do 1 times 2 is 2. I'm going to do 1/3 times 2, or 2 divided by 3, whatever. You get 0.6 repeating pi. Don't forget the pi. It wants me to round to the nearest 10th. Go to the 10th place. Look 1 digit over. It's a 6. It's going to tell my 6 to go up. So it should be 0.7 pi. And then look at your units. Feet cubed. Number 9. Find the volume of this cone. So, the thing I love about these, I don't care if it's giving me the radius or the diameter because it's actually giving me the area of the base. It's telling me that the area of the base is actually 9 pi. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug it in for my general formula. 1/3 area of the base times height. So area of the base is 9, my height is 7. I have 9 pi times 7. What I'm going to do is 9 times 7 first. That's 63. I'm going to do 1/3 of 63, 63 divided by 3, etc. You get 21 pi. Again, go back, look at your units. Kilometers, kilometers. Volume is kilometers cubed. Number 10, last one. So what I want you to do, you are given the area of the base. Plug it into the formula. Figure it out. Pause this video. When you're done, unpause it. We'll be going through it. So, like I said before, I love these ones because it gives you the area of the base. 1/3, area of the base times the height. Area of the base is 81 pi. The height is 18. Plug them in. 18 times 81 is 1,456. Hopefully you used your calculator and didn't just wait for me. You have 1/3 of 1,458. That gives you 486 pi. Again, hopefully you used your calculator. Notice how I'm dragging that pi through the entire problem. Last thing, miles, volume is cubed, so it's miles cubed. If you don't understand something, go back, rewatch this video. Otherwise, got your homework for you.